Yuta, Nanako, and Todo were all preparing to face off against his now amplified Jogo. Kenjaku's final distraction to give Sukuna a bit more of an advantage. Yuta contemplated for a moment on if he wanted to kill this cursed spirit using reverse curse technique. But there was some disadvantage with doing that. If he were to use reverse curse sneak on Jogo, it would drain him of quite a bit of curse energy. He couldn't currently use Rika to restore his curse energy. After all, he needed the full manifestation of Rika in order for his backup plan of taking Gojo's body to work. But would the curse energy cost be worth it in comparison to just fighting Jogo normally? Would fighting and killing Jogo himself have a better result than using reverse curse sneak to instantly kill it? Fortunately, Yuta did have an advantage when it came to knowledge against Jogo and his abilities. With Nanako, Todo, Choso, and Yuji all having fought against Jogo in the past, they were able to give Yuta some information, including telling him that Jogo wasn't that durable as a cursed spirit. It was mainly going to be its speed that would be an issue. Both Todo and Nanako on his side, two people who did well against speed-based fighters, he felt he had a pretty good advantage. Especially considering Rika would likely be able to join them pretty soon. As Yuta then said to himself, "I hope you can hold out for a little bit longer, Yuji." As Yuta lifted up his blade while Todo lifted up his hands, preparing to face off against his cursed spirit. Nanako also quickly moved in order to get a picture of Jogo right off the bat. But Jogo started this battle off by immediately starting to rush right at Nanako. Before she trained with the others, Nanako would not have been able to see Jogo's movements. However, thanks to all the training she had done in order to increase her curse energy reinforcements, she could at least react to Jogo now. But Yuta met the charge halfway, with Todo clapping at the same time. Todo's clap made Nanako swap place with a dying cursed spirit, using it in order to make Nanako be at an even further distance from Jogo. Jogo's fist clashed against Yuta's blade for a couple of seconds, until two of them were pushed away from each other. As Todo then clapped his hands again, an advantage they had with how much cursed spirits at Geto spawned was there was a lot of things for Todo to be able to swap with, which made Todo one of the worst possible counters to go up against cursed spirit manipulation, as Todo focused curse energy towards his own foot and attempted to land a hard blow right onto Jogo's back. But Jogo was able to sense Todo appearing, as he quickly turned himself around midair and attempted to fire a large burst of lava right towards Todo's direction. The sound of another clap echoed throughout the air, as Todo swapped places again with one of the stronger cursed spirits, before Todo clapped once more, appearing nearby where Yuta and Nanako were. Jogo then landed, skidding backwards on his feet a little bit as he stared towards his opponents. Yuta and Todo were both known for being relentless, not giving their opponent a moment to breathe, as they both rushed right towards Jogo, Jogo not having the speed advantage on either of them. However, Jogo did have some other things he could do, as he launched out several ember insects right towards the both of them, each of them with a blazing amount of curse energy coming off of it as well in an attempt to make sure they could hit. But as they were approaching, Yuta quickly jumped high into the air, while at the same time Todo jumped right into the ember insects, before clapping his hands again, swapping places with Jogo and forcing Jogo to get hit by his own technique. While the damage done on Jogo from his own attack was minor, especially considering it was his own curse energy, it still did some damage nonetheless, especially with his lacking durability already. But once the smoke and ashes began to go away, Yuta was rushing right down towards Jogo, his own blade blazing in curse energy. As Jogo then lifted up his hands, he was about to try and launch out a large burst of lava towards Yuta, but when he did launch it out, it missed him completely, even though Yuta didn't dodge. In fact, his arm was completely off its own trajectory, before he then remembered. Nanako had moved his arm slightly off course in order to make sure the lava wouldn't hit and Yuta would have a clear shot at stabbing at him. During this month, Nanako had mainly been training in order to use her curse technique on the likes of Kenjaku and Sukuna. Even with Jogo being in this amp state, she was certainly prepared to be able to use it on him, as Jogo attempted to move backwards in order to try and stab the blade, which led to Jogo getting a deep slash on his chest. However, this was much better than him getting stabbed completely through. But then Todo rushed right towards Yuta, before clapping his hands and swapping Yuta and Jogo's places, as Todo landed a kick right on Jogo's face, and Yuta landed a punch right on Jogo's stomach, sending Jogo rocketing through several of the cursed spirits. Nanako smirked a slight bit. She was proud of her own improvements. After all, she remembered how hard it was for her to do that on Jogo originally, and now she could really see just how much she'd improved. But their fight wasn't done yet, as the entire ground began to heat up. Before out from it, large swaths of lava began to shoot up, several geysers of lava opening, as Todo and Yuta quickly moved right towards Nanako as well, just in case to make sure they were nearby her and they were as a group right now. As another large geyser of lava began to rise underneath them, but at the last moment all three of them were suddenly picked up by Rika, before all three of them were placed down gently. All of the cursed spirits that Kenjaku had summoned onto the field had now been executed by Rika Orimoto, as the Queen of Curse was staring down the final curse of Kenjaku. Jogo then clapped both his hands together, causing several ember insects to form around him. The battle damage he had taken from both Todo and Yuta was starting to heal itself. However, it did do some notable damage to him. Even with the ample durability from Kenjaku, Jogo still was lacking a little bit in durability, as Jogo then launched out each of the ember insects right towards the group of them, while at the same time he jumped into the air and started to rapid-fire bursts of magma towards them. In particular, he was aiming for Nanako and Todo. He wanted those two to be dead in particular since those two were the main supports. leading to Rika flying high up into the air in order to begin a rush right on Jogo. At the same time, Yuta focused a large amount of curse energy right towards his fist and punched the ground, causing a large amount of the ground to crack and shatter. Using that in order to make a rubble clash with several of the Ember Insects and have them activate beforehand, before grabbing Nanako and moving them out the way. Todo, though, was able to evade several of the lava attacks pretty easily on his own, and even the ones that did get close to him he ended up clapping and swapping places with. Even swapping places with some of the remnants of the geysers that were made earlier. And Jogo then looked up as he was about to attempt to fire out another lava attack right towards Rika, but his arms were suddenly forced down, forcing him instead to fire at the floor. Nanako had forcefully changed his position again, leading to Rika slamming their massive fists right into Jogo's face and slamming them in the ground. Or at least they were about to make contact with the ground until suddenly they felt something else against their back. Another kick from Aoi Todo landing right on them. As Todo then smirked before he then said, "You know, a cursed spirit like you should have learned this by now. I'm your worst possible opponent. Because all you're really doing with all your attacks is giving me more and more things to swap with." As Todo began to rapidly clap his hands, Yuta, Todo, Rika, they were also in place with lava attacks that were scattered all across the area. As suddenly Jogo felt a large fist land right on his back again, this one being from Rika. But then he saw Yuta appear right in front of him and land a punch right on his face, before Todo appeared as well, landing a kick right on Jogo's side. Todo was now left in a combo between the three of them. While it wasn't as effective when Todo used it with Yuji, they still did have some time to practice. To make it even more annoying, every time Jogo attempted to launch out a counter-attack, his hands were slightly moved out the way, making it so his attacks were missing constantly. But even for Nanako, moving Jogo repeatedly like that was starting to have a toll on her stamina. And Yuta could sense that as well. So it was time for their final rush, their final attack to try and kill Jogo, as he, Aoi Todo, and Rika all rushed right towards Jogo while he was trying to heal. As Jogo then lifted up both of his hands, aiming them right towards Yuta and Todo, while at the same time he lowered his head, preparing to fire off a massive burst of magma towards Rika. Nanako was not going to be able to deflect all three of those attacks, however she also knew that Rika was incredibly durable. So she moved Jogo's arms out of the way, causing him to miss those lava bursts, while Rika had to take the full-on head burst from Jogo. But for the Queen of Curses, this was nothing, as Yuta stabbed his katana right into Jogo's side, while at the same time Todo punched Jogo in the side as well. Before they both jumped back, as out from the lava, Rika clasped both of her hands together, and slammed them down hard on Jogo, putting the cursed spirit down once and for all. Nanako sat down, panting a little bit. She was completely exhausted, but a smile rose onto her. She did it. She finally avenged her sister. The memories of Suguru, her father, and the memories of Mimiko, her sibling, could finally lay at rest. But she knew they weren't done yet. They all still had work to do. There was still one final foe left. We now return to several abandoned rubble buildings in Shinjuku. A wave of blue fire was clashing against a wall of ice. Both of them were big enough to encompass entire buildings. Urame, the only sorcerer that was able to gain the favor of Sukuna, was currently battling against an experiment from the most evil man alive, that being Jin, a human cursed spirit hybrid who was rebelling against his parents' desires. As out from that large wave of fire, someone came rocketing through, breaking right through the ice and punching Urame hard in the face. This person was Akari, one of the students entrusted with the dream of Satoru Gojo, knows and picked for his potential by the strongest of the modern era. Thanks to his Curse and domain expansion, Akari was able to wield an infinite amount of curse energy. As a result of that, he had reverse curse activating constantly, being able to heal at a faster rate than even the strongest of the modern era or the strongest of history. But Akari didn't let Urame go that fast, as he quickly picked up Urame and threw them right towards Jin's direction. And before Urame could get a chance to react, they were suddenly met with a massive torrent of flame coming right towards them, as they began to use reverse curse in order to heal themselves off, but even with that, that was still stamina draining on them. If it was just Akari, they'd be able to stall with no problem, but Jin had the firepower to wear Urame down and eventually kill them, resulting in Urame being forced to create a pillar of ice underneath themselves in order to launch themselves out of the fire. As Urame was trying to get a slight break for themselves to think, but they didn't get one, as Akari came rocketing right for them and uppercutted them in the jaw. Akari was absolutely having the time of their life right now. After all, during this month of practice, he had gone quite a lot of time to practice with Jin. And sure, the burns were stinging a bit, but he was having a lot more fun. After all, he always wanted to go through a mountain of fire to punch somebody. It kinda reminded him of a movie he watched a while back. But he had no time to think on that, and he saw several bursts of fire be launched right towards Urame after. Urame was just narrowly able to activate Icefall on time in order to counter, but even then, the fire was slightly overpowering it. But it made a delay enough for Urame to jump out of the way, or at least try to, until Akari was right by their side and punched them in the stomach, before throwing them right back into the ground. As a look of rage began to fill Urame, before they put their hand onto the ground and sent a massive ice spike right towards Akari's direction. Urame was completely done with having to do this 2v1 right now. But then they heard a voice saying, "You should have launched that at me, not Akari." and when Urame tried to look in the direction where the voice came from, they were met by a large stream of fire right to the face. But this time Urame was a bit more prepared by coating themselves completely in ice, as Urame then jumped out from the stream of fire, making a bit more of a distance from themselves from their opponents. But Jin then launched fire out from his feet, using it to launch himself right towards Urame's direction, as he focused a large amount of fire right towards his hands, but at the same time Hikari landed right next to Urame. As he activated his domain expansion, Jackpot had run out, but now it was time for a second run at Jackpot, leading to Jin and Urame being filled with the information from the domain. And while it did stagger Urame, it didn't stagger Jin anywhere near as much, as Jin punched Urame right in the face, releasing the wave of fire right towards them on close quarters, melting right through Urame's sheet of ice as well as doing some burn damage on their body, as Urame activated a reverse curse sneak in order to heal this off, all the while Hikari's domain had just finished working, landing another jackpot for him. Urame was really not sure how much more of this they could take, however they weren't going to go down that easy, as the domain began to shatter around them while they stared at the two opponents. Urame had to admit to themselves they underestimated their two opponents. If they wanted any chance to be able to assist Lord Sukuna, they were going to need to go all out from here, as they could see several of the ice spears they had created earlier begin to fly back towards Urame and start to combine, before they started to compact, spinning around rather fast, creating a small yet compact planetoid out of ice next to Urame, about twice their height. Consider this a little bit of respect. After all, I heard what your group was capable of, and while I had originally made this in mind of Yuji Itadori, using this on you should be more than applicable. Jin had to admit he was getting slightly annoyed. He wanted to go already to support his brother, and yet this person was still staying alive so stubbornly. But Jin knew better than to lose his cool. After all, that was exactly what Urame wanted. As Jin then said, "It won't matter how many of those ice orbs you create, I'm going to burn them all down and burn you till there's nothing left." And Hikari lifted up both of his arms as well. He was curious to see what that orb would have done, but he was also rather cautious about it as well. There was also something interesting happening on the ground. Even with the ice orb being close to the ground, it was causing parts of it to freeze, as it began to twirl rapidly around Urame. With each of its movements, the ground underneath it was freezing rapidly. The level of cold that this ice orb was at was on another level, immediately telling both Jin and Hikari they were going to have to be cautious of this ice orb. Still, the both of them felt rather ready for it. In particular Hikari. After all, he was completely immortal. Jin, though, had a different plan. He had no intention whatsoever to interact with the ice orb. Instead, he was planning to kill Urame. That way, if Urame was dead, that wouldn't be a problem. An extension technique doesn't matter if the original user of it was dead. Of course, unless it was a post-death technique, but at the same time, Jin doubted that was the purpose of this technique. Or at least he was hoping it wasn't. As Jin then clapped both his hands together, beginning to rapid-fire bursts of blue flame right towards Urame. But the orb of ice quickly moved in front of each of those bursts, countering them and chilling them out, dispersing each of the flames upon making contact. A smirk began to rise on Urame, as they were happy to see that this worked, though that smirk was quickly interrupted as they suddenly felt a punch land right on their face, causing Urame's eyes to slightly twitch as they looked towards Hikari, before they sent the ice ball right towards Hikari's direction, slamming into Hikari and starting to push him through several buildings. Due to making contact with Hikari, it was immediately starting to freeze over his entire body, before Urame looked back over to Jin, as he told him that from here on out it was going to be a one-on-one. They were done with these games. Jin then punched both of his fists together as a fire erupted off of his body. Bring it on! He had faith in Hikari to be able to handle this for a little bit longer. Best case scenario, he'd managed to kill Urame before Hikari could even get back, as Urame then lifted up their hand, causing tens of ice shards to form high in the air. Each of these ice shards were around the same size as a human body. This was the Icefall attack, but it had so much more effort put into it this time, as the fire erupting off of Jin began to get hotter and hotter, bigger and bigger before it started to compact, surrounding his entire body at once. As Jin then said, "I developed this technique after sparring so many times with Aoi Todo." You'd be surprised just how difficult it actually is to properly counter that curse technique. As Urame then launched a massive amount of ice spears right down towards Jin's direction, but Jin then clapped both of his hands together, resulting in a huge burst of blue flame being launched all across the area, forcing Urame to have to hop back in order to avoid this attack, as they saw several of the ice shards they made be completely melted through, turn to water, and then the water be evaporated, as well as large apartment buildings around them turn to dust. And while the fire was loud, Urame was able to hear something. As Urame thought to themselves, "They're chanting?" The fire beginning to focus back to being around their hands. Not just were they compacting all the power they had just released towards their fists, they were also amplifying it with chants. Nova, Phoenix, Eclipse, as they rocketed right towards Urame, using their own fire in order to propel them at max speed. Their fist was glowing a bright blue. Urame on near instinct called that massive ice ball they had launched out earlier back towards themselves. but that gave somebody else the perfect chance to begin their own assault. Hikari Kinji had now re-entered into the fight, forcing the ice off of their body and healing themselves after, as he focused curse energy towards his own fist. But more than that, Urame was able to send something off in the air. As before the ice ball could intercept against Jin, Hikari punched it, landing a black flash on it and shattering the ice ball completely, causing a wide smile to rise on Hikari, as Jin spun around him and launched right towards Urame. And they punched Urame in the gut hard full force, releasing that massive torrent of flames right into them, making a massive ball of fire, and turning Urame completely into ashes. Hikari and Jin had won this battle, but it cost them quite a bit of stamina. Still, they had more than enough stamina to continue going, and Hikari was pretty fine thanks to his domain expansion and effectively refueled him. I looked over to where everybody was battling Sukuna, and seeing that Yuta and Kotsu hadn't arrived slightly worried them, but more importantly, seeing the defeat of Higuruma, they needed to rush over there and now.